Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
So please help me and join me in welcoming Aloma.
I decided not to take the gloves off in front of you, although I've taken them off many times, off and on, many places. Hi, I'm Aloma. I'm an alcoholic, and I use drugs too. And I'm glad to be here. And as Gail W. used to say, Aloma, you should be glad to be anywhere.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious. Do you think this is better than Zoom?
She was one of my first sponsors, you know, and absolutely one of my just favorite people in the world. I've been so lucky. First, I want to thank Matt. Thank you, Matt, for having me, a local. You know, usually he gets them from out of town and all that. And, you know, so I'm very privileged to be here. And I didn't really know if I wanted to. I didn't want to share today, I have to tell you. You know, I've got a little stuff going on in my life. Hey there, cutie, a miracle. Stuff going on in my life, and it's not pretty. I will tell it further on down the line. I was born, I'm a Pisces, and, you know, my mother was an alcoholic, and my mother left when I was about 4.5. My sister was 3.5, and my brother was 6 months, you know. She walked out that door, and we never used the word mother in my household. You know, we called her the monkey, the tramp. We called her a barfly. I don't know what my father had against monkeys. You know what I mean? I actually liked them. But anyway, it was kind of the lower. That was as low as you could go, you know. In those days, it was the 50s, so you didn't use anything deeper than that. I don't know if he even knew that. He knew those words. I'm sure he did. Anyhow, my father was Japanese. I told you I'd tell the story. We've got 2 veterans here from World War II. I always felt they were going to kill me because I came in here like, you know, feeling Tojo should have been allowed to commit harikari. You know what I mean? Now, a lot of you are all too young to know what that means, but you can see how old I was. He was the head of the Japanese Navy and Army and all of that, you know, and they just arrested him and they wouldn't let him commit. In those days, the Japanese really. Anyway, it's ridiculous. I talked about this at meetings, you know what I mean? Like I had something to say when I could talk, and now, of course, I understand, but somebody didn't just smack me, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, my dad was a good guy, you know, he did the best that he could. He was very Japanese, and I wanted to be more Japanese than anyone in my family. Unfortunately, I was a giant, you know what I mean? My dad was 5'3", and my sister and brother were both kind of even size, but short, you know. And here I was like a big Huey Duck, you know what I mean? That was like a cartoon character, just like this big duck, you know. And so I tried to be more Japanese than anyone. There was no giving up, that was the rule. No surrender at all. You know what I mean? No matter what happened. My father believed in corporal punishment, and you didn't cry. You just didn't cry. But that's not why I'm an alcoholic. You know what I mean? And it's not why my mother, it's not because of my mother that I'm alcoholic, that I have to remember that. I was trouble in River City from the gate, you know what I mean? I believe I had all the isms of alcoholism way before I picked up a drink, way before I shot drugs, way before I did any of those things, I always went left when you said right. I started getting in trouble when I was 12 years old, you know what I mean, and was in and out of juvenile halls, and one of the first 13-year-olds to be sent to Ventura State Mental Hospital. Of course, there was always those mental hospitals. I don't know why. I guess they thought how could this person be so young and be doing all this? They said to make the beds in four corners, and I wouldn't do that. They said there were certain things to do, and they would throw me an X, which was an isolation, over and over and over again. And at the end, I was to spend 6 months in the hole, you know what I mean, with my food being put under the thing. And I didn't get it. And I remember this woman, and only mentioning this, because to let you know about the self-will that was going on this. And I remember this woman, Miss Toombs, I'll never forget her name, good name for her too. And she would bring the food and all, and she said to me, Aloma, you were self-willed, and that's going to get you in trouble all your life, and you're going to spend all of your life locked up in some kind of way. Now, this is before I drank, I do remember swallowing these pills in juvenile hall. I didn't know what they were, so already I was game, and they had a sort of like were to clean the toilets. Somebody told me they would make me feel better, and of course I swallowed them, and and I burnt my throat. I always felt better than, and I always felt less than. And sometimes I felt that way at the same time. You know what I mean? Better than, less than, better than, It was a conflict, you know what I mean? It was a conflict, And I was to carry that until I found alcohol and drugs, that better than, less than, better than, less than. I am very grateful for my past. I'm very grateful for my past. For one thing, I wouldn't be here if I would have just been some mental patient or had hung myself at a young age. I was suicidal from the time I was like 4.5. I mean, that's all I could do was rock back and forth, and I wanted to die. And that's not the way really normal people behave about not being able to go out with a girlfriend or stuff like that. Yeah, he was tough, my dad, but that was, it was the way I responded to the situation. So I ran away from home, and then when I came back, I picked up with the local James Dean. He was cute. I don't know, a lot of you are too young for him also, but and he was a rebel with a cause and without one, And we pushed his car all over the place. It was very chic. It was very chic in those days to have a car. It didn't matter if you had to push it, you know what I mean? And and I got pregnant. I got pregnant when I was 14 and a half, and I had my first child at 15 and a half and my second child at 16. Those, and that's not why I'm an alcoholic. I got to tell you that. It has nothing to do with it. There were a lot of girls that got pregnant at that time. It was quite a thing. We were all on those bleachers and, God knows, in the back of the car and all of that. There are a lot of kids from those times, And there are a lot of success stories, too, So, that's not why I became an alcoholic. I had to get away from this guy. He was going in and out of institutions, and His alcoholism had taken him to a violent way about him. I used to hide under the kids' crib, and I was able to get them and get out and run away, you know. With that, I had just gone out on some job. Someone said I was beautiful. Now, you know, you have no idea. I wanted to be beautiful when I was a child because I thought beauty, the outsides were a way to get out. You know what I mean? And I read the magazines and the fashion and the movie stars. I wanted to be that. You know what I mean? I had these big dreams, and so I don't know how it happened. And this designer loved me. You know, he just thought I could walk. You know, and that was real important in those days. If you had a good walk, and I did. And you know, I remember when I was a kid also looking in the mirror and looking at my back and thinking, God, my back is beautiful, you know. If I would walk into rooms backwards, you know what I mean, people would love me. Now, I told that to my sponsor, Lou Ann, after a while, and she said to me, can you see how self-obsessed you already were at 8 years old? They were really cruel, those people that sponsored us and all that. I mean, really, they did. They got right in your face. Sit down, shut up, you know. So the thing of it is that I became a high fashion model. I'm going to speed through that part of it. I was very lucky. Everything kind of opened up to me, and I forgot all about my mother. I forgot all about any times that I had seen her. I forgot about sour milk on the windowsill because there was no refrigerator. I forgot about the men coming in to the room and being there. I forgot all about that, you know. And I had come into pills at that time because you had to be very thin as a model, you know. And most of the big girls, and I mean the big girls, had a flask. I didn't have that. I didn't know you were allowed to have a flask. I would have, you know. I was still young. Anyway, I found speed, and speed was my first love, you know. And I coupled that with champagne because you couldn't be an alcoholic if you drank champagne. And I gotten into the world of society because if you were beautiful, you had a commodity that everyone wanted, and I began to know that. You know, you had something that was going to take you places, and I had these two kids, and I had to go places. I had to go places, you know. I had to go places because I didn't want to be poor, you know. Also, my whole life, you know, and I look at it now with such pride that my father was who he was, and that he put newspapers on the table, you know, to make a tablecloth, and that he'd go to the thrift stores and he'd explain to us the different silverware, you know, the right things to use and all. And we always had these piecemeal kinds of things. I can look at that now and say, wow, man, you know, that is so good. That is so good. But then it was like, I don't know, I didn't realize that I was moving through life on this I don't know, I was just moving through life, you know. Suddenly I picked up alcohol and I had these drugs, this speed, and I could walk on those runways, you know. I could walk right out on those runways, and I could be with those people, and I could date the society's best boys, you know what I mean, and that was good, and the whole world opened up to me. But you know, I'm an alcoholic, and you know that is a progressive disease. And for those of you that are new, remember that it is a progressive disease. For me, I was out of the gate. You know, I had that missing enzyme or whatever they talk about it, because I started blackouts right away, and also my alcoholism started to affect at least 15 people in my life already. This is before it had taken me down. This was before any of that stuff happened, because, you know, I was late at places. I was late to show up for shows. I would miss them, come to in someone's bed, usually a Rockefeller or someone, which kind of nice, but with tea coming in. And of course, I wondered, these people yelled at other people. The designer would yell at the presser, and the presser would yell at someone else, and the person that fitted on that. Everyone got in trouble, excepting me, with that. And that was to happen over and over and over again. You see, if you keep drinking and using, they got to blame. If you got any family left, they got to blame someone. They got to blame someone. They can't stand it. You know what I mean? People can't stand it, so they blame your friends, and they blame this one and that one. Well, if she hadn't had this kind of life, and if she hadn't had that kind of life. And that went on for me. And, I kind of liked it, you know what I mean? Because eventually I married the right Jewish guy. I love Jewish men. That is a disease on its own, I have opened it up to Catholics and to a lot of different, and I married, and of course that was fabulous, you know what I mean? He was a built-in Al-Anon, and he blamed himself for my life, and how heavenly was that? You know what I mean? All I had to do was call the studios, because he was in show business, and at that time in show business you could get away with a lot of things. I'd go to these dinner parties and tell a studio head exactly how they should live, in a blackout, and I also, I don't know if you were one of those kinds of people, another dinner party, I would go into where the music was playing and play the same song over and over again. People went to dinner and then they left dinner, and you know what I mean? It was like, oh yeah, she's weird. In that time I wanted to be Miss America, you know what I mean? And I became a Girl Scout leader and Pop Warner football. If you take a lot of speed, you keep moving. And there's a lot of times I wish I had stopped. I wished I would have been one of those couch potatoes or one of those kind of drunks. No, I kept moving. I left my own parties for better parties. You know what I mean? And my parties were considered really good. You know what I mean? I came to with Coke dealers, and I remember my closest friend, Billy Boyle. He's passed on now. Coming to in his, he's in Carrie's story too. Coming to, and I guess we had made love the night before, or made whatever we made, and he was very proud of himself because he hadn't been able to get it up forever, and so that's what happens, for the guys. Sorry, guys, you keep using that Coke and drinking, that's a promise. And for an alcoholic woman, we forget, you know what I mean? And so he couldn't believe that, and I couldn't believe how clever he was to have his coffee table, everything glued down on it, you know what I mean? So people wouldn't rip him off, Well, the mental institution started then, I was coming to in very strange places, and I had OD'd several times. I was that kind of gal that OD'd in the most inappropriate times, like on Halloween, and I had these children. By that time I had a third child, and when I came for a visit months and months later, in my foyer was all the Halloween decorations, and there was a shoe in the corner. No one touched anything, because that's what alcoholism is like. It was like the family was being destroyed piece by piece by piece by piece, and I was becoming that mommy dearest that I read about, that I never wanted to become. I wanted to be a nice person. You know what I mean? I think I loved my kids. It's hard to know when you're an alcoholic. It's hard to know what you love. You know what I mean? Because bottom line, when push came to shove, I needed to get loaded. When push came to shove, every day I'd say the same thing. Every day I'd say I'm not going to drink anymore, and I'm going to show them. I'm going to get up earlier and make pancakes, you know what I mean? I'm going to drive them to school or drive them here or there, and every day, you know, it was the same old thing. I took those pills, and I woke up to vomit in the silver bowl next to my bed, and that's what came down, you know, every day, you know, and this family became disjointed, and what happened is that they started to put me in mental institutions because of the things I started to do and for the ODing. And I remember one time, and I look back at that, is that I had OD'd and I was dying. And they were trying to save you. And that's what happens at these emergency rooms. You know, they try to save you. They try to get your heart moving. They try to get something going to you. And I remember being over my bed and looking down and thinking, they shoot horses, don't they? You know, I was crippled. I could not go on. There were no more excuses. I couldn't get it up anymore for it. And that husband would come and he'd lay on across my bed after I came out of intensive care, and he'd say, why? You know, don't you love us? Don't you care for us? Don't you care for us? Don't you care for the kids? What can I do? How can I help you? You know, and there's no way to help an alcoholic. There's no way to help an alcoholic. That alcoholic has to come to and have that kind of surrender. And it took time for that. I'm going to skip along. I was doing this. I was in that mental hospital for a year. Kathleen writes this story. You know, they had given me a lot of Thorazine, and I was doing the Thorazine shuffle. You know, and then they yell medication, and you're running up to the window. They have taken away your lighter, by the way, you know what I mean? Any sharp tools and all that, and you get your, letting you get your meds, you know. They weren't the kind of meds I liked, you know, but whatever. And Thorazine, Stelazine, all these really crummy drugs. And I got out of there after a year, and I thought, you know something, I have to do something about this. You know how we are, you know. I am going to stop shooting morphine. I am going to stop shooting speed. I am going to stop taking these pills, and I'm just going to drink, you know. Well, drinking's a whole other card, you know what I mean? Doing drinking alone had me crawling up the stairs, and that the dog looked good at 2 o'clock in the morning. You know what I mean? It was not pretty, you know what I'm saying? And so that got my attention, and one day I came to, and I called a very close friend of mine, not Joan W. She and Marvin had already sort of, where they were finding bottles in the back of his car. A good friend of mine, Marvin W. A lot of you know him, and her, and that we. So they had started to think about going to AA, you know what I mean? And I called my friend Wendy, and I said, Wendy, I think I'm an alcoholic. I'd seen it on TV. Late at night, they'd have these signs of that. Of course, I was always up, you know what I mean? The only thing my husband wanted from me is, please don't leave the house, you know what I mean? Because I'd crashed the car so many times, and you know, I would take those kids in the car. By the way, I need to tell this because it's funny, but it's not funny. I have them in the back because I had so much to do in driving them, and you know, the driving in the hills to the various places through Beverly Hills and up on the high, and the kids were in the back of the car, and their ears were back, and their hair were back, you know what I mean? And that's why these kids come in, these adult children come in like this, you know what I mean? It's not good. I mean, I want to tell you that we can laugh about those things, and it's okay for you to laugh, you know, and it's okay for me to be funny today about these things because I don't have to do these things anymore. I don't have to do these things anymore. I didn't drink today. I didn't use today. You know, I didn't abuse anybody today. You know, I had turned into a maniac, you know, going down the halls, pulling out the drawers, waking them up in the middle of the night, accusing them of not folding things right, running down the hallway with a baseball bat in my hand, leaving my son on street corners when I was supposed to pick him up, but I was too busy at La Scala Boutique drinking and it didn't matter if it was raining. See, that's what we do. That's what you do. And if you're a guy, you do the same thing, only you do it in a different way. You know what I mean? But everybody gets affected. Everybody goes down. Everybody goes down. Because that's what it is with alcoholism. You don't stay up. You know what I mean? There's a time where it says in our big book that we either go to jail or a mental institution or we die. Listen, I tried to die. I knew that this was, I never even thought about my mother about it, I didn't think about my mother till I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was about six maybe months or 3 months sober, and suddenly it occurred to me that maybe I had found something. Maybe I found something. Maybe I was going to get allowed to do something, going to be allowed to be forgiven for what I had done, because I don't think any alcoholic wants to do what comes down. I don't think any of us expect that we're going to behave in the way that we're going to behave to our family, to our children, to our friends, and all. And but I got this flicker of hope, and I thought, maybe my mother was an alcoholic. Maybe that's why it did what it did. She did what she did, And if I can put in a piece of forgiveness for my mother, maybe I can put a piece of forgiveness in for me, Maybe I can get allowed to stay sober, and maybe I can, through these steps and what you were telling me, could change, And it was about change. That's what I heard from you people. That we could take a life like mine, a life that had ruined every good thing that had come into it. And that's a piece that took a long time to change, in Alcoholics Anonymous. It took a long time to change this destructiveness. You know what I mean? Because that's a part with it, being self-destructive, ruining the things, even in sobriety, that goes, and it takes, we come to believe, We have to do these steps because we need to disclose, discover, and then we need to throw out that junk. We need to throw it out. We need to tell other people about it, and those become our jewelry. That became my jewels, you know what I mean? What I had to share with you. And I dragged these kids to Alcoholics Anonymous, and all 3 of my children are sober today. It was not easy. If it weren't for you people staying in my corner over these years, I don't think I could have done it. If it wasn't for a God that absolutely thinks I'm as cute as pigtails, I couldn't have done it. You know what I mean? I tried to do it by myself for 8.5 years. I loved Alcoholics Anonymous, but 8.5 years I drank again. And I drank again because I had separated from a power greater than myself. That I had none of that, that I went back into, that there was a punishment going down, and the punishment didn't fit the crime. My son was arrested one more time. He tried to hang himself. These were violent crimes. My daughter was a junkie, oldest daughter, and the little one who I'd sent, got allowed to send to Sarah Lawrence College, and it was, you were so excited for me. And I went to that graduation and gave that dinner party, you know what I mean? That was the kind of good things, because there were some good times in that sobriety. I was not a bad AAer, you know what I mean? I helped people. I did all the things we were taught, because I knew that was the lifeline of Alcoholics Anonymous. On the other hand, that if it says in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, if you don't have a relationship with this power greater than yourself, that you choose to call God or whatever, that surely you'll come a time when you'll pick up that drink. You will have no defense, no matter how good you are, because there's a lot of good people who die of alcoholism, and there are a lot of son of a bitches that stay sober. Get it? I'm just being real with you, you know what I mean? Because I think the people that I saw take this podium, they were the people that counted with me, were the people that told the truth. that told the truth about this disease, that didn't cover it up. Now, like I said, there were some great times. I became a photographer. I hadn't finished junior high. I did things. I made a lot of money, and then I made no money. I've been homeless on this program. And I've had limos pick me up, you know. I have friends on this program that are like my family to me. Jerry, Kathleen, Connie, you know, so many of you that I grew up with. You know what I mean? Literally grew up, got taught how to, manners, good manners, got taught how to live. You know, I had none of that. I was an animal when I came. It didn't matter I lived in Beverly Hills. It didn't matter that I knew all the right things and had learned all the right things. You see, if you're an alcoholic, you can have all those things. And you can be in silk sheets and you're dying, you know, and you're wetting them the same as you are on Skid's Row. I don't know about any of you, but I was a bedwetter. I was a wetter anyway, you know what I mean? I thought it was as right as rain, you know, anyway. You know, like I said, my daughter got, my oldest daughter got sober. She's 51 years old today. She's got about 21 years. You went down with me down to Venice where she was hooking, and that she was like 13, 14 years old, and you went down in the station wagon with me, and you helped me put up signs. Sean, come home. We love you. Sean, your mom wants you home, you know, we'll come and get you. All of that they did on these blood-spotted, Venice used to be really heavy, right, Jerry, at that time. And then, and she got sober. It took what it took. It took what it took, you know. That didn't stop her, and a lot of things didn't stop her, but finally she got sober. My son ended up spending most of his life in prisons and in jail. You know what I mean? He had become the violent alcoholic that he didn't want to become. You know, my son is a good person. He is a good person, you know. He wouldn't step on a fly, I don't think. No, right now I'm a little pissed at him, you know. You know, and he at me, but he wouldn't have done any of those things, you know. But you know, he's an alcoholic, and he did not get it. He did not get it until this last time he was incarcerated. He was incarcerated in, he shouldn't be alive, in places like Corcoran, you know, where they have a sign called "No warning, shots fired." You know, that's his story, and he has been able to. He was able to surrender this last time, and it turned out he took a plea for a crime that he didn't commit this time, but it still was going to be a third strike, and he was never going to get out. And the miracle happened with that. The miracle happened because we went to court. We got allowed to go to court one more time. They said it would never be. They said this would never happen. They had corralled these people of violent crimes in one place that they were never going to be able to get out. And it was a mental institution, so they could keep doing your time, you know. And we managed to get a court date, and we managed to get a public defender, you know, we took it to trial. They took it to trial. Now this DA wanted him down. She wanted him down, because if they released him, that means that they would have to release others. You know, that's what would have to happen. You don't know. It's hard for us to understand the system, but it would mean that somebody would get. So she was fighting for a life. But she was also fighting to show what kind of mother I was, and how it ran in the family, this violence, and how I was a drunken person. She had people who knew me at that time, and I had told them, tell the truth. Tell the truth. You know what I mean? Because I wanted him out. Don't tell the truth. Tell a lie, but make it so that I'll get out. But they talked about, my friend Wendy came to court, and she said that she used to be passed out on the bed. You know what I mean? And the kids were running around or in the bathtub. They said that she used to leave those kids on street corners, you know, and that's what it was, and that's who I was, and they said that. And she kept drilling that into that, because it was, for her, there was a correlation between what my son was and what I was. You know, I don't know why, but you people went down there with me. Kathleen wore her Gucci suit, and she showed up there real proud. A lot of you got there, and you filled the front rows of those seats. That took a lot of courage. You know, they had never seen that for this kind of crime. They'd never seen people show up, you know, to support that. And every day I went, for 3 months, every day I showed up there. And what happened is that it was just before Thanksgiving, and this is 4 years ago, and the judge had given it to the jury, and the jury said they weren't going to make their decision till after Thanksgiving. Both my son and I looked at each other. I wasn't allowed to talk to him, and I knew it was over. I knew it was over. You know what I mean? Because I thought, like my little childish self, and I believe that every time things turns off right, is that they before Thanksgiving they were going to let him go, you know, and stuff. And it wasn't that way. And I looked at my son, and he sent a note with a public defender who is on the program, who I love and dear friend of mine, and he sent the note, "Don't worry, Mom, we'll try again." And I thought surely he would kill himself, you know what I mean, because it meant him going back, and it meant maybe we'd never get another jury. The thing is that the following Monday after Thanksgiving, they came out of that, came to court, and at 9 o'clock in the morning, they acquitted him of the crime, and they released him that day, you know. And the public defender said, not public, the DA went in the back with the jury. She was furious. She was furious. You don't know. I mean, this knocked her down a notch. This was her fault that this happened, you know, in her, whatever. Like, and she said, why? Why would you do? I put on a case. I showed you that this person will repeat this crime. This is who he is. This is where he comes from, you know, and all of that. And this jury said to the head of the jury said, "We saw this woman come in every day. We saw her all dressed up, and she sat in the front row. We saw her come every day. And we knew this woman had changed. She wasn't the same woman that they were talking about. She wasn't the same. She had changed, you know. And if we could believe that a person could change, then maybe we're going to give this guy a chance. Maybe we'll give him a chance, you know." And they did. They signed that acquittal paper, and they released him, and they gave the pin to him. You know, they gave the pin to him. You know, now it's up to you to do with your life. He's sober. Well, he got sober in there, and he's sober almost 16 years. He was locked up for most of it. He's been out for 4.5 years. My youngest daughter, I want to say this quickly because, you know, we're going to have a lot of ups and downs. You know, there's going to be a lot of downs around here, and you're going to have to stay sober through them. And then it's going to be like skiing on rainbows, you know. My youngest daughter, who became a junkie, that I got the chance to go to Sarah Lawrence College, you know what I mean, became a yuppie junkie, and I thought she's going down. But all of you told me, just be your mom. Just be your mom. Just keep the door open. Keep the door open and love her. And it came to a point that she came home and she said, "Mom, I want to get sober." And she did. She knew all you people, and you embraced her and took her through, carried her. She has 2 children. Both my daughters are gay, and we always thought Peter was our great white hope, but it turned out. Yeah, but my youngest daughter had 2 daughters, and I have 2 granddaughters that are the loves of my life. You know, I get to be with them, do with them, and they love me. They love me. They look up to me. They know I'm going to be there, and I owe that. I owe big time. I owe that to Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank you so much for letting me share.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. to install the joysticks for control. Up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. And if that shows up, the gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.